Heidi and her friends, along with at least 100 other teenagers from a variety of high schools, congregated in South Langley. And then around 12:30, one of the friends from high school ended up driving his car at quite a speed through the crowd of teenagers. He struck about 17 or 18 teens, killed Ashley Reber instantly, and then Heidi and a number of her friends were laying on the road with a variety of broken bones. So Heidi her shin bones were shattered in both legs, but she didn't have any other injuries. It was just her shin bones that were broken. Heidi ended up being taken to Peace Arch Hospital in White Rock, and they called the orthopedic surgeon, who was on call and should have come in, but he kept delaying, and they kept calling him again and again throughout the night. And then finally he arrived about 9 or 9:30 in the morning. And then he looked at Heidi's x-rays, and her legs by this time were very badly swollen, and ordered more x-rays. When she was taken for the second set of x-rays, about 9:30, 10 o'clock, I was in a waiting room, and then all of a sudden all these emergency personnel were running into the x-ray room, and something had happened. So she'd had a seizure. She had a brain seizure. So then they determined that this was a higher emergency than they wanted to handle, so they sent her by ambulance to Royal Columbian. So she was then taken in within hours to have her legs surgically repaired. But they fixed the legs, and they gave her medication to bring down the swelling in her brain. And then they put her in a drug-induced coma so that she wouldn't have any brain activity that would cause any more swelling. So in the end, they inserted a tracheostomy, and the surgeon didn't want it as high as they normally have it, because he said she's a beautiful girl and she won't want that scar. So he put it a little lower than normal. She ended up with a really bad infection in her trachea that ended up eating through the innominate artery wall, and then she had a massive bleed and bled out, and then lost her heart rate for a good 30 minutes before they could get her going again. But by that time, that was it for her brain. So she was rendered brain dead within 3 days after that, and we lost her. A sense of justice is proof that someone did something wrong, causing a death, and somebody either admitting and apologizing for it, or a judge saying you're guilty of, negligence causing death. And we had nothing of that sort. I had correspondence back and forth with the College of Physicians and Surgeons, and they just denied there was any wrongdoing, even though the coroner's report and the Children's Commission report clearly showed that the doctors had made errors. There was no admittance of guilt, and there's certainly no apology. So then that put us talking to lawyers, what do we do now? And we were told basically, because she's a child, her life is worthless in the eyes of the law, and there's nothing we can do. There's no one we can sue. Our law is not structured that way. So the doctors who made the mistakes that led to her death had no repercussions. There was no suspensions, there was no firings, there was no retrainings, there was nothing that is done. And I think that's the part I find so frustrating. Certainly the deep grief over losing my daughter, but to think that this can happen again and again and again because the doctors aren't learning from their mistakes. There must be some kind of mechanism put in place, some legal mechanism that would enforce, I think, retraining and some kind of penalty for them for being negligent, causing the death of a child.